Hello, party people. Welcome to the third episode of my podcast entitled Run It Back. If you haven't noticed by now, typically we go over things that happened in the past, and when we go over them, we try to shed new light upon these things, these topics, these subjects. I feel that I would like to think someone can gain some insight from this. In the meantime, everyone has a different definition of this term or terms, and I know I have my own. I have my own experiences, and I will allude to them. I will talk about them. I will elaborate about them, but I'm not mentioning names, not mentioning any timelines, just about my past. And I'll leave the rest for you guys to figure out. Okay, as far as episode 3 goes, the definition I am talking about, right, is about what qualifies as emotional abuse. In a romantic relationship, what qualifies as emotional abuse from your partner at the time. Okay, we're gonna go to a Australian website that I found this article on, and then I decided to make a little video about it. Okay, so I'm kind of neurotic about this. Okay, as you can see, I'll start reading off some things. 1 in 4 women and 1 in 6 men have experienced partner emotional abuse since the age of 15. I didn't really start dating until I was like 1920s, something like that. Not 1920 as in the year 1920, 19 or 20. I don't remember exactly. Excuse me here. Within emotionally abusive relationships, threatening and degrading behaviors were more commonly experienced than controlling social or financial behaviors. Financial stress, living with intellectual or psychological disability, and single parenthood were associated with higher rates of partner emotional abuse. Those who experienced abuse or witnessed parental violence as a child were twice as likely than those who did not to experience partner emotional abuse as an adult. Over half of women and a quarter of men who experience partner emotional abuse also experience physical and or sexual violence by a partner. Now, basically, what is all that trying to say? All that is trying to say that in today's society, we do not talk about how men might be raped, physically abused, especially by a female, being mistreated, being degraded. Sometimes there is violence, and in some cases, as a man, you're not supposed to put your hands on a woman, because the stereotype is a woman is biologically weaker than a man. If you want to complain to that was about someone, go ahead. I don't know who to contact about this stuff. I'm just reading it. So it's gotten better recently where the thing is men are starting to feel more open about reporting and detailing about being molested, usually by another man. You can endorse whatever stereotypes you want. That's what I tend to find to be the common denominator among all this, and it's a good thing, obviously, that men feel more and more comfortable reporting acts of sexual assault, sexual abuse, molestation, etc. Now, I just want to share some figures here, right? First of all, if this triggers anyone or you need someone to talk to, help is available. 1-800-RESPECT. That's 1-800-737-732. I believe that is the Australian number for that, but you can probably find this out. Um, the lifeline is actually 13, 11, 14. I think these are Australian phone numbers kind of formats. So, so what you're about to see are some numbers for social, demographic, and economic stuff. Um, types of emotional abuse, how they can come in many forms. Um, does it coincide with domestic violence? It can, and quite frankly, usually it does. The life satisfaction, health status of persons who have recently experienced partner emotional abuse. So, life satisfaction and health status, basically, do they have a disability? Um, what position and gross income, money they might have access to? Um, in 2016, right? The PSS 2016 Personal Safety Survey, PSS. Examples of emotional abuse are controlling or trying to control a person from contacting family, friends, or community. Constantly insulting a person to make them feel ashamed, belittled, or humiliated, otherwise known as put downs. Controlled or tried to control them from knowing, accessing, or deciding about household money and where it should go. Threatening to take a person's child or children away from them. Now, obviously, I cannot relate to that part, but I'm sure someone out there can. For a list of emotional abuse behaviors, you can check out the nature and impacts of partner emotional abuse. The link is also at abs.gov.au. Like I said, this is an Australian website. So we're going to look at some data right now, right? An estimated 1 in 4 women, or 23%, or 2.2 million, have experienced partner emotional abuse since the age of 15, including 6.1% by a current partner or 18% by a previous partner. So the good news is that most people who have had some form of emotional abuse are no longer with that partner. 18% of them that who have come forward aren't with that partner anymore. 1.7 million. The 6.1% that are includes 575,400. Now, in terms of men, that was just I probably should say women before, but in terms of men, right here, since the age of 15 again include 5.2% by current partner, or 12%, 1 million by previous partner. So this is basically saying that there is a slight discrepancy of 6% where men are not leaving a previous partner who is emotionally abusive. So we're going to take a look at this little chart right here. I think this is a very good chart. I wish I found this sooner. Okay, so total for people over 18 and over. If we have 9.4 million women, 9 million men, and have they experienced partner emotional abuse? Women will say 2.2 million, or 23% of them have. Men will say 1.4 million, 16% of them have. By current partner is 6.1%, 5.2% women and men respectively. Or by previous partner, 1.7 million, 18%, 1 million, 12% women and men respectively. For those who did not experience partner emotional abuse, this includes 7.2 women, 7.2 million women, or 77%. The men who did not ever experience partner emotional abuse include 7.6 million, or 84%. Now, I want you to think about that. Why is there a discrepancy there, right? So, this comes to the whole machismo thing, right? Where the whole macho thing, where a guy is not supposed to be seen as weak, be manipulated, be assaulted, be emotionally abused, including, whatever form of that might be, some racist remarks, condescending remarks, just questioning their so-called manhood, etc. Just because there are 84% of men who did not experience partner emotional abuse. That does not include, obviously, people who have not reported it, people who have not taken this PSS survey thingy or whatever. And that is exactly why. There's probably, emphasis on probably, but most likely, probably there are more women who are reporting these incidents than men are. Now, this is strictly emotional abuse. This isn't like physical assault, obviously. Or, can men be physically assaulted by a female partner? Of course, as well as other partners, etc. No matter what the gender, whatever it is. So, ages 30 to 44 for women and 45 to 54 were more likely to experience abuse. 65 years and over, only 2.2% were less likely to experience abuse. For men, it came to 30 to 44 years have 6.7%, which is the same number as women in that category. Or there isn't even a listing for the 45 to 54 years, but the 65 and over is 2.1%, where, the women were just about close to that as well. These are social and demographic characteristics, by the way. As we can see on this graph here, right? This is amazing website, amazing research. It doesn't start. Typically, it doesn't start early. We're talking 18 to 29-year-olds, right? The one in the light blue is women. The one in the dark blue is men. 30 to 44 years old is the primary age group where emotional abuse occurs. Is prevalent in 45 to 54. However, from 45 to 54, there's a large decrease in men who experience emotional abuse. Now, is that because they have gotten older and more embarrassed to come forward? I mean, it's possible. Anything's possible. If you look at 65 and over, there's very little. There shouldn't be any, don't get me wrong, but there's very little emotional abuse going on. And then you look at the national average, and percentage is on your left, on the y-axis, and age in terms of years is on the x-axis. Now, usually there is a disability or long-term health condition. It doesn't necessarily have to be a physical disability. Women experience partner emotional abuse if they had a disability, or any other, like a life-threatening health concern, for example, like cancer and whatnot, as 6.3 and 4.1% respectively. Men with a disability came to emotional abuse around 4.7%, and those without a disability was only 3.8%. So 4.1% for women were also unlikely to not have a disability and not experience that. Does the disability have to be there for there to be emotional abuse? In some cases, according to this data, yes. Is that a different format in terms of a graph and statistics and percentages? Of course. None of these tests and whatnot are perfect. Let's see. If we look at family composition, right? So there is a correlation between domestic violence between parents, quite possibly emotional abuse between parents and their guardians or whoever's taking care of them. When children experience that, men and women are more likely to experience emotional partner abuse later in their lives. Now, the interesting thing is this, right? In a couple family with children under 15 years, that is very low. And this is the prevalence of emotional abuse by the family composition and the gender. Same thing, light blue women, dark blue men. A one-parent family within children under 15 years. I want you to look at that. Look at how big that graph is. Look at the bars right there. So as a single parent, do you lack an example of what a healthy relationship is supposed to be? I mean, if it's a single parent family because of a divorce or restraining order or whatever might have happened, um, without the knowledge of what a normal relationship is between parents, those children, when they grow up, are not going to know what a normal relationship is, especially if they encounter an emotionally abusive partner. Um, Families with no children didn't really have any problems. A lone single person household, just one person, not really any problems. And the national average is pretty low. Um, but the big thing to look at is a one parent family with children under 15 years of age. Why is that so high? And more importantly, what can we do about it? I don't have those answers. Maybe you can find them on the internet, but you know, I wouldn't say I'm not an advocate. I would say that a lot of this stuff is over my head, and we'll get to that later. Okay, so now I'm not going to read all this data, but there are things that affect emotional abuse prevalent, which include, um, let's say, the employment status. Let's call it that. It includes education status and basically income as well. Now, if you're in a struggling income home, you are more susceptible to experience emotional partner abuse either currently or in the future. Now, if you lack education in terms of college degrees, high school diplomas, you're more likely to encounter emotional partner abuse. If you're unemployed or not in the labor force, which doesn't necessarily mean you don't have access to an income, you are unfortunately more prone to emotional partner abuse. So it's a number of factors that are in play here and to consider. Now, how do we solve all this, right? I want you to look at cash flow problems, or like I was saying, income. Light blue is they had cash flow problems. Dark blue is they did not have cash flow problems. Men are such a minority in this graph. It is insane. When you look at 9.3% of women and 8.8% of men who did have cash flow problems, why do you think emotional abuse can include controlling someone's income, trying to dictate where certain money goes where, and like basically sometimes stealing your partner's income, or whatever cash is available, assets, etc. You don't have to be poor to experience emotional abuse. Does it make you more susceptible to it? In terms of percentages, yes. In terms of actual life, you can have all the money in the world and still come from a dysfunctional family. Money does not solve everything. It helps, but it doesn't solve everything. So basically, yeah, so like I'm looking at all this stuff, right? And like, this was like maybe a week ago. I had to like let this little topic sit, and I had to decide how I wanted to approach it. Controlling social behaviors, like controlling which family you contact, who you socialize with, your friends, even extended family, and just controlling who sees who when, or spends time with them, etc., or talks to them on the phone or whatever. Financial behaviors, degrading behaviors. Now, some people might not know what degrading behaviors might include. That is usually with children and their parents, or one of their parents at the least, is experiencing emotional partner abuse. There's consistently a threat of harm or removal of the children from the household, because that's basically the worst thing you can do to a parent, is to do something to the kids. It's to threaten them, to abuse them, maybe not just emotionally, to yell, to shout, to swear, to degrade, to verbally abuse, which pretty much leads to emotional abuse. Now, there are also or instances where someone can hold themselves hostage, so to speak. And this includes, threatening or trying to commit suicide on either side of the relationship, no matter who is being emotionally abused or not. That took me the longest time to look at. And it's not as black and white as it might seem. Now, the person being emotionally abused is usually not the person threatening harm or suicide to themselves or anyone else. Now, like I don't know how to phrase this, but if you look at the number of women, the 575,400, 76% experience threatening or degrading behaviors. It can also be directed towards pets, by the way. I forgot to mention that. Animals that you take care of, etc. 473,000 men who experience emotional abuse include 56 percent of men who have had threatening or degrading behaviors. Now, threatening is not just physical violence. It can be something concerning money. It can be something concerning security and safety in general. It can concern that. Does it ever get to that point? I mean, at some point, I would imagine so, unfortunately. But typically, because of the embarrassment and the stigma, most men are not prone to reporting physical abuse. And they're sure as hell not prone to reporting emotional abuse if they won't even report the physical. Now, so this graph right here, right? In terms of controlling social behaviors, people who experienced it, as in they were the victims, the dark blue is men. Look at the fact that there's slightly more men whose social lives are being controlled as opposed to women. They're just still both pretty high up there, especially pretty close when you look at controlling financial stuff. Now, why is it that there are more women who are being threatened, and degraded than a much smaller percentage of men who are being threatened or degraded? Now, if you look at the way the world is, let me say that the way it is, hopefully the way it doesn't always stay, because I would hope things don't stay the same, like, half a century from now. Men who are threatened or degraded get to the point where, this is my opinion, this is also a little bit of what I experienced. We'll get to that later. So they might not think it's emotional abuse. They might think this shit is normal. And to be threatened by your partner, someone you're supposed to love and love them back, and they love you, etc., they don't know that that's to be threatened by that person, that loved one. That's not normal. There's a lot of men out there that don't know that. They think, oh, this is just, my partner being mad at me, my female partner in most cases. But we're not gonna go down that rabbit hole. I mean, there must be some data from somewhere that describes either homosexual or lesbian relationships in general, or even polyamorous ones. When you think about it, that opens up a whole new can of worms. So, the type of behaviors, again, if we look at this, this is by emotional abuse that leads to other things like controlling social behaviors, financial things, purposes, incomes, etc. Just the money of the household. And then it gets into the actual comments, or the yelling, in some cases physical violence, but concentrating on emotional abuse only is what I'm trying to focus on here. There's a very good reason for that. We'll talk about that later. So if you look at I'm trying to see what this graph is. The persons who experience emotional abuse by current partner and the number of behaviors experienced. So if you look at men on the very first bars over there, right? On the left. Those are how many men who typically, it makes you wonder how many of them are staying with those current partners. Not because they're necessarily afraid of them. They might be afraid to leave their partner on their own. They might have a sense of duty to that partner, or some sort of attachment that in their minds explains why they're still with that person when they are being abusive towards them. Now, if you look at the number of this is by the number of current partners and the number of behaviors that have been listed, and it just goes to everyone is used to having one partner that does that. It is somewhat rare, I would say somewhat, to have someone go through multiple partners who are all emotionally abusive. Because I hate to say this, but being abusive in general is not normal. Being abused in general is not okay. It is something that for some people they need someone to intervene. And the reason behind that is because they feel that they are not safe enough or strong enough, etc., to stop the abuse. Now, as we're wrapping up here, this is just, some of this data is crazy to me. Oh my god. How often the abuse occurred. Now, this is strictly, it's not as scientific, let me put it that way. I want you to take a look at these bars, right? Okay. Why is that last bar not even there for men? Why is it not there? How many men are reporting that most of the time they're being emotionally abused or worse? And how often, for most of the time or all of the time, you only see 8.7% women reporting that? Why are men not reporting it if it happens most of the time or all of the time? So someone tell me. I would like to know. I think we all know why, we just don't want to admit it. It's because men eventually become immune to these things. They think the shit is normal, and quite frankly, it is not. It should be borderline illegal, especially when it gets to a security or violence or physical threat form. Hopefully, it doesn't have to get to that point. Now, once only, I want you to think about that. Men overwhelmingly experience emotional abuse. At least once. Only once. 33.8%. Compared to women who are 15.4%. Now, other than that, women generally experience the emotional abuse from a current partner more than men. So why is it men are quote unquote only calling it emotional abuse once? Just one time. And then every other time after that, if there is one, they don't really, it's not on the data. It's not an option. Why is it that a little bit of the time is more common than no men, no percent reporting most of the time or all of the time? I want you to let us sink in. Let us sink in for a little bit. And this is how often they were abused. It includes, once only, a little of the time, some of the time, most of the time, or all of the time. If you look at these are for previous partners, by the way. I'm sorry, I should have said that. Not a current partner like the last one, a previous partner. 37.9% of women are reporting that was a previous partner. Only 21.3% of men say that was a previous partner. But you would assume these percentages are after they either stopped being in romantic relationships or they found someone better. Ideally better. Because most of the time, most people, let me put it this way, most people learn their lesson. the first time. They learn that this is what an abusive person is. This is why I don't want to be with them. This is why I won't be with someone like them in the future. That is a lot easier to say than actually do. And that is the unfortunate of this society we live in. I don't know how to correct that. I don't know. Obviously, with abuse, it's common to experience anxiety or fear of the actual abuse, of the actual emotional abuse. So I think we're all pretty educated on what emotional abuse is. Now, when emotional abuse happens, are there other factors, contributing factors? And this include sexual abuse as a child or physical abuse as a child. So people who are abused themselves are more likely to end up in abusive relationships, especially emotionally abusive ones. Why is that? I'm not even gonna explain it. Like, there's no reason to explain it. Like, we all live in this society, at least in this first world country. We should know this by now. There are violence towards a parent, or by your partner when you've seen it happen to one of your parents. And in broken homes and broken families, you see this a lot. It's unfortunate, and I don't know how to solve these things. Like I've been saying, I don't know what the right answer is. I would like to think that education is going to help out a lot, but it's not. I hate to call it this. It's not like there would be ever something that's but a cure, a comprehensive solution to stopping this from happening in the future. If it can't be stopped in the current partner, at least if there is ever a feature with a different partner, that person, that victim, knows to get the fuck out of there. That they don't deserve what's happening to them. That they're basically, this isn't how things are supposed to be. I think that takes care of this. There's a website here I thought was very helpful. It's domestic violence experiences, partner emotional abuse, etc. And again, this is from abs.gov.au. It's from an article. Okay. I think, and there are people that I know who will agree with me, I've been in a couple, maybe a few emotionally abusive relationships. Now, with those relationships, I will admit, when I was emotionally abused, when I was the victim, it made me want to do it back to them. And there's not a lot of people out there who will admit that. Because we want to be like the victims, right? We don't want to be the ones at fault. That's not us. We don't do those kind of things because they started it. That they started that argument. Is that really gonna hold ground here? They started it. I don't know what to tell you. I know from my experiences, without getting overly emotional, I would try. You don't feel it until it's too late. You don't feel it until you're already caught in that web, that trap. And there seems like there's no way out of it. Because in your mind, in the male's mind, you might have idolized, that's a good way of putting it, the person that you're with. You think they can do no wrong, and that at some point, maybe it was your fault. Now, that's going to happen. Like, what is your fault or your partner's fault? That still doesn't justify emotional abuse toward either party. I hate to stress this, but this all this data and all this shit is typically from heterosexual monogamous relationships. Most of it. It doesn't specify that, but you can assume that. Now, how did I get out? I probably didn't get out in the healthiest way. Um, I'll let you use your imagination. I was by myself in a room, and I locked the door. And after that, I didn't want to leave that room. It was actually the bathroom, but that room. And I picked that room because there was a lock on the door, and I didn't have plans to leave that room, um, ever. As in, I would be unalive, as they call it these days. I would be unalive. Now, keeping in mind this has happened more than once to me, you would think people in general, right? We will learn our lesson at some point. Do you know what I mean? Like, you will learn that you don't deserve this, that this is not okay. And you know that. We all know that. If you grew up in a first world country and you went to school, a fairly decent school, kindergarten, etc., you know that you treat people the way you want to be treated. Now, the problem with that is, in someone's fucked up life, sometimes, emphasis on sometimes, there are people who think what they see in their families, their parents, whoever, abusing your partner in any way, shape, or form is okay. It's normal. It's men are supposed to be yelled at. Men are supposed to be physically abusive toward women. Like, I say supposed to be, but you know what I mean. These are the typical assumptions, the stereotypes. And the biggest one being that is that, in my opinion, the biggest stereotype being that men are not supposed to show signs of weakness. And that includes intervening with a female partner, with whether that be through the legal system, whether that be through the authorities, whoever. We are taught that we're supposed to be stronger than that. We do not need anyone's help in dealing with that. Obviously, from the data, you can see what happens because of that. And I'm not saying these numbers are skewed. I'm not saying they were, made up or, intensified. I'm saying that I'm saying that it's on one hand it's more normal than people think. On the other hand, it's not normal at all. And the problem with that is it can't be both. It shouldn't be both. They say hindsight is 20/20, and when you look back on your relationships, especially if you had a abusive or emotionally abusive one, you think about it and you're like, how much time, how much love did I waste on that person? I don't think there's a number or a scale to that. Love is the most intense feeling that a human being can have. It is also one of the most manipulated ones. The ones that you justify in terms of being degraded, threatened, abused, ostracized, because that men, we're not supposed to feel these things. Like if we get yelled at or something or some shit like that, anything worse, it's sort of our fault that we aren't at a level that an alpha male is supposed to be, and that's why this has happened to us. We're taught that a woman is supposed to be subservient, that she comes second to the man in the house. And when that's not the case, to an extent, for some men, it can be emasculating. It can be traumatic. It can be any number of things that women experience from abuse, men can experience from abuse. I don't think people realize that. Abuse doesn't care about your gender. Abuse doesn't care about your income level, your abuse doesn't care about who your friends are, who your family are. The abuse is like a black hole that slowly gets bigger and bigger and sucks up more shit into it over and over and over, until one day you decide you want to get out of that black hole, and you hope it's not too late. You hope that whatever negative thing or negativity you might have experienced in that relationship, you hope that it's over. You hope that you're never going to meet someone like that again. And all I can really say is nothing's guaranteed. And when it comes to matters of the heart, the matters of romance, real love, etc., all is fair in love and war. Alright, so I tried not to make this as personal as possible, but I think we can already know what I'm talking about here. But in case you didn't, feel free to watch this episode again, comment, whatever. I'll get to all my comments. At the level this channel is at, I get to all my comments. So if you comment, I'll probably reply. All is fair in love and war, but not everything should be. Some things should be unfair. Some things shouldn't even exist. So, all I can really say is, thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for listening. And take care of yourselves and each other.